Welcome to the Critical Few Actions to Improve Your Business podcast. I'm John Downs and I'm here to help you cut through the overwhelm and prioritise what matters most to improve your business. Let's get started and discover the critical few actions that have the biggest impact. Jennifer Ford is the CEO of Southern Ocean Subsea, a business founded by her husband Andrew and a former employee, Kelsey. It was set up to pursue an idea, responding to giant clients in the Tasmanian aquaculture industry to help them solve the problem of keeping the salmon in the salmon farms and not in the tummies of passing seals. I met Jennifer in one of my early CEO masterclasses in Hobart. Jennifer, welcome.
Thanks, John. It's great to catch up with you again.
Jennifer, tell me a little bit about the journey from providing a service to repair fish nets for Huon Aquaculture and TasAl to developing advanced subsea remote operated vehicles, ROVs, that inspect and repair these nets.
Absolutely. Well, Southern Ocean Subsea was actually co-founded by Kelsey, our current business partner, and his previous business partner back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
They actually saw a need in the market within the local aquaculture market to actually do the servicing of the aquaculture's remote operated vehicles, subsea assets, and also like the mechanical net cleaners. So Kelsey and his previous business partner started this little business down here in Tasmania. At that time, Andrew and I were still currently owning and operating our previous business, Diveworks Subsea Solutions, which we founded back in 2003. So Andrew and I were quite busy doing a lot of inspection, repair, maintenance work in the oil and gas sector for companies like ExxonMobil and Beach Energy in Bass Strait in particular. And so what happened was Kelsey was obviously working very closely with his clients, and he could see a big need there in the industry to find a way where they could actually inspect and repair nets in the water. And it was around about that time that Andrew and Kelsey started to reconnect again. And when they were chatting, Andrew obviously saw something that he was working on in his own spare time, as a lot of entrepreneurs tend to do. Didn't quite have the resources. And Andrew, I remember he came back to me and said, "Oh, Jim, we need to look at this." And that was around about the time we were scaling down the assets in our organisation. And we were actually looking for another opportunity to invest in and to perhaps from our 15 years experience of being in business together to actually bring that to another company and to that to the next level. The idea really, again, I think a lot of innovation comes directly from your clients, their unmet needs, I would say. So that's where the concept originally started. Kelsey started to use a program called Fusion. So I guess technology has come along rather than engaging an external person to perhaps design that original subsea tooling concept to repair the nets in the water. He was able to start to do that himself. And then shortly after that, he'll build his own machinery to try and build that. And then he also realised that it wasn't just the tooling, we needed to put it on something. Yeah. And current ROVs that were in the market were probably in aquaculture were more suited for the oil and gas industry. They were quite heavy and industrial. Yeah. And we needed something that was more flexible, manoeuvrable, lighter, etc. So hence that journey back about 4 years ago.
All right. So let's drill down on a couple of things there. So let's start with that. So you had a successful ROV business that was an operations business where you'd provide and operate the ROVs for the customer. And then you decided to step back from that business and go all in on becoming the innovator and the manufacturer of ROVs and remote operated net repair and cleaning equipment. So what did that look like?
Absolutely. Well, in those early days, it was very much just owner-operated business. So when Andrew and I came along, we'd obviously been in business together ourselves. So that opened up new things that we had to look at, such as our partnership agreements. So in the early days, we spent quite a bit of time, working through establishing correct business structures, structures to own the IP to make sure that the innovation was protected.
Yeah.
We also spent time doing a shareholder agreement to really nut out potentially, all the what if and all those sorts of things. So we
Prepare
spent
yourself for an exit at some point.
correct.
It's
So I
always good to start that way. Yeah.
exactly. So I think the difference we did this time was preparing with the end in mind, if that makes sense.
Mm.
I think strategically, when I participated in the CEO masterclass in 2021, this is around about the time that Andrew was looking at this idea. And that's what I used that 12-month program in 21 was great because, first of all, me being the one who doesn't like to take too much risk, I used that time to strategically look at the potential to, if this product was to be able to be built here in Australia, what's the potential in the market? Not just in Australia, but is this something we could take worldwide? And in that market research, we realised that the aquaculture market here in Australia is only 1% of the global aquaculture market.
Mm.
We realised that obviously there was a huge potential here, which meant we'd obviously down the track have to look at exporting as well.
Yeah.
But primarily what had happened was we realised that we had enough sort of ability within ourselves, accessing government grant funding and things like that. So we could then increase our capabilities to actually design and build and manufacture these subsea products ourselves.
So where's the business at now in that regard?
So at the end of last year, we made our first export sales over to Norway.
Wow.
Which is pretty exciting. So in a 4-year period, I would say we really have, as you probably have stated, done like a crash course in innovation,
Yeah.
commercialization and export. So our journey now is we are getting set up to we'll exhibit at one of the big major conferences in Norway next month.
Mm-hmm.
And we're strategically working with a supplier over there to make sure we achieve the highest certification to meet the industry standard for performing these underwater repair processes of the nets.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting very close to completing that. So obviously Norway is actually 40% of the world aquaculture market.
Wow. So that's nearly 40 times the size of the Australian market in
Correct.
that case. So
Yeah.
what a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, help us understand some of the key learnings that you had through this journey. It must have been at times a vertical learning curve. So let's start with a new partnership. Previously, it had been you and your husband, Andrew, working together with a team. And with SOSUB, you formed an equal partnership with Kelsey and his wife. How was that as a change? And looking back, what have you learned from that experience?
Absolutely. I think from my perspective, it's actually been a nice change because traditionally my husband and I don't know if you've interviewed other people where a husband and wife are in business together, you tend to eat, sleep, talk business all the time. Very hard to switch off. I think what I've actually really enjoyed, particularly because Kelsey is actually the head of the R&D, they very much communicate on a day-to-day basis and they deal with the day-to-day operations. So from my perspective, it's nice not to be involved so much on the day-to-day side of the business. We've got our oldest son that's actually involved working full-time now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, it's nice. We can have a nice conversation over the dinner table and perhaps it's something I haven't heard of today, which has been lovely.
So you're not actually having dinner and an operations meeting and a board meeting and a strategy meeting and a risk meeting and a sales performance meeting. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. And it's actually really nice being in partnership with someone as Kelsey, because as I think I mentioned to you, we actually employed him originally in our company many years ago. And I think out of all the people we've actually worked with, if I was to go into partnership with someone, it would be him. He's a very delightful person to work with, very easygoing. I think communication is really important as well, and very easy to work with. And I think the key to us moving forward is we've really worked out we've really settled into our roles. It probably did take a little bit of time. You know, we were mindful we were coming into another company that someone had originally started, and to be very respectful of that as well. But also he's been respectful of the fact that our experience, we're able to bring this to the current organisation and really accelerate that through our skills and our knowledge, our network base, and obviously funding and things like that as well. So he feels that he wouldn't be in the position he is today if we hadn't all sort of come along together and met at the time that we did. So,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the interesting thing about partnerships, and not many people realise it before they get into a partnership. But I sort of see partnerships as very similar to marriages. You know, you're going to spend a lot of time together. You're taking risks together. You're financially committed together. You're financially accountable to each other. It's easy to get into and incredibly expensive to get out of if it doesn't work. And so that courting process, that process of learning a lot about each other is really essential before committing to a partnership. And as you sort of mentioned, you know, having a shareholders agreement, which actually talks to how do we actually separate, is an essential part of that process, so that you know up front what are the deal breakers and what are the issues and how and what are the parameters of what an exit's going to look like. So I find that you know, partnerships can be incredibly successful. Sadly, a lot of them aren't, mainly because they don't go through that preparatory courting process where people really get to know each other. And of course, you know, one of the benefits that you're experiencing is the fact that that partnership actually allows there to be a bit of distance from the business day to day, because there's two people working in it, and then they go home to their actual life partners or to their own spaces, and then don't spend the entire time bending their ear about what they did during the day. So that's a really insightful learning, Jennifer.
and I think too as well, what we've found as well is, you know, Kelsey's very innovative, and over the last couple of years, been able to give him the tools that he needs to do. And I think that's probably one of the role of a CEO, is really making sure your team have what they need to do and making sure they're in the right role and they've got all the tools and the equipment and the support to flourish in that role, not trying to put things onto people that they're not quite comfortable with. So that was, you know, that's been a really nice way we've been able to sort of navigate and sit nicely into those roles each, and respect that really well, and work together as a team. So
yeah, look, I think that's another really important learning, and that is that you know, it's as a sole trader or as a single CEO, in some cases there's often an element of self-sacrifice. You know, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money to invest in this technology or this resource that I need. You know, it's often self-defeating. And when there's other people involved, they can actually have a little bit of distance that allows them to turn around and say, well, actually, for you to be effective in this role, you know, you're actually going to need this. And that's a sacrifice that the partnership can't afford, even though it might be meant with the best of intentions. The other thing that you mentioned before, which also relates to that marriage thing, which is really the communication. I mean, the communication and in fact, and particularly in those early years, not early weeks, but early years, over communication is the key to resolving so many niggles and disputes and issues that could turn into festering sores if they're left unaddressed. You know, again, that's one of those critical relationship success criteria is communication.
yeah, no, I definitely think that's it. And I think it's like any relationship, it's a bit of give and take. You know, someone might be really sort of adamant about going down a certain path, and you sometimes just have to back them on that. And we're not always right. We make mistakes. We're human. We need to, you know, forgive each other. But I think also the other thing I remember reflecting on, John, as well, just the last couple of days, is when I did that masterclass, it really gave me time to sort of clarify, okay, well, Andrew and I always had our vision, our mission, what we're trying to accomplish for our previous organisation. And then was really, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve now with Southern Ocean Subsea? And to share that with the team, and we're involved in that together. So I did that during that year. So we're really clear where we were heading. And I think that's really important, particularly a lot of innovative businesses. One thing you'll find is they're never short of ideas. It's a matter of focusing on, okay, come back to our core. why are we doing this again? And because often if you're out there very closely working with your customers, which our teams do, you can often find lots of other problems that they have and want to tinker off and solve something else. And it's always like, okay, is this part of our strategy? So you want to keep on the path, but you want to be flexible at the same time and not sort of deviate from that original goal that you set out. And a bit like you talk about the critical few actions again, it's just keeping it simple and just sticking to a couple of key things to keep you moving in the right direction. So
Yeah, and I guess, one of the benefits that you have as a partnership, really, I guess there's sort of a series of roles that you're being played. One's operational, one's innovation, one's CEO, and so on. From an innovation side, as you say, innovators will probably have, 20 good ideas every 5 or 6 minutes. And the trick is, which one do they actually focus on? The other part, which is important, is to actually know when the innovation's finished or when it's ready to go to market, because there's temptation to constantly tinker and fine tune and tweak, when the reality is you've got to get into a customer's hands as it's often called, a minimum viable product, to test it out, prove it out, get the customer's engagement in this process, get them involved, get their new ideas and their must-haves and their deal breakers. And you could polish the idea.
yeah,
You could polish that for as long as you like, but unless you're getting customer experience and you're getting field feedback, you're not actually necessarily achieving anything.
yeah, 100%. And that's what we realised. That's where that close relationship with one customer in particular is absolutely pivotal for us to get to the point to commercialise the product. So we engaged, obviously, a part of my background as being a CEO, understanding the legalities, making sure we had good agreements in place with them and able to trial and test that over a period of time, getting immediate feedback from our customers. So we could straight away, we put it in their hands, they were trialing it, they would give us, the time and access for us to do that, which was absolutely pivotal in us redefining, continually evolving until we got, again, like you said, John, you do hit a point where sometimes you're like, it was sort of like, okay, we're nearly there yet. Have we got this product ready to go? And of course, the engineers will tell you like never, but you do make a judgment call somewhere along the line, because you will always continually improve. But you do get to a point where you've invested so far and you do need to start getting a return on that.
You've just got to get that thing in the water.
Got to get the thing in the water. And then it's rewarding when you see your customer actually, start to transition across to your product and you're getting that really positive feedback and things like that. And then of course, it grows from there, which is fantastic. But
so let's just dig into the development process. So you have this unique technology that no one else has invented globally. How did you handle the development process and how did you protect it? And looking back, what do you see as being the key learnings for you as a CEO?
Certainly. I think when I sort of came along the business, Andrew probably worked more heavily on the R&D side of it originally with Kelsey. I was kind of more of an advisor, just sort of looking and seeing what was going on. But I realised quite quickly there was a number of things that we could do to help accelerate that innovation. Number one was obviously to do the market research to make, if we go down this path, that we can sell this product here and overseas. Secondly, Andrew was probably more involved on the dealing with the patent attorney from a technical side, to explain that to them and make sure, okay, we realised that we could actually export these to other aquaculture markets around the world, such as the Canada, Chile. We identified the Australasian area, the European market as well. So we wanted to make sure we've applied for patents in those particular regions to protect the IP. We've also set up that in particular structures as well to protect the business as well.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we had to set up, we realised as well we're able to access funding like government grants to support the growth. So I realised we're in a very innovative space, more so than what we'd been before in our previous business. So I reached out through the CEO Masterclass. I started to talk to state growth and they then networked and referred us to industry. And in that year was when we actually applied for the first big grant. So that was called the Accelerated Commercialisation Grant, where they
Right.
matched dollar for dollar. And we realized that we wanted to, if we wanted to try and do this ourselves, it was probably going to be too hard and too expensive. We needed to start to make it ourselves, or as many of the components, particularly the hardware. Probably have to outsource the software, but there was no reason why we couldn't do it here with the new advanced manufacturing capabilities that we actually have here in the technology today.
Mm.
So with that grant funding, we also, Andrew and I, contributed some capital into that. And we also went to the bank and got some pre-approved finance as well.
Yeah.
It was a combination of things. We needed the funding to able to pay wages, to spend more time doing innovation. Obviously, there was a number of prototypes that were developed over time, making sure the legals were in place, reviewing insurances, all those sorts of things. So as you can imagine, the business grew. It was originally in operating out of a small premises here at Kingston, which we still do today, which is probably more where the servicing for the local aquaculture industry occurs here. A lot of R&D, but we have also since in the last couple of years set up our advanced manufacturing plant in Carrum Downs in Victoria. So that funding has been pivotal in order for us to do that and has certainly helped to accelerate that over time. The other thing we realised, we were eligible for a lot of the expenses in quite a substantial amount in these early days that was spending on innovation. We were actually able to access government R&D tax incentive claims as well, which I didn't know about before. So it's been fantastic accessing all of that, support. I think has made a really big difference. So
yeah, and so you've had federal government funding, taxation office funding, Tasmanian innovation funding. Did the Victorian government come to the party as well?
I don't believe we've accessed much from Victoria.
Oh, don't worry, they're all broke. They're broke at the moment. So there won't be anything left.
We may operate out of there strategically because it's easier to export our product, unfortunately, out of Victoria.
Yeah.
Love to have done it out of Tasmania, but that stretch of water in Bass Strait can be very costly. And a lot of Tasmanian businesses will probably tell you.
Absolutely. And so how did you actually go about managing the grant process?
Yes, certainly. So we were fortunate to tap into a specialist, a company by the name of Avant Group. They have partnered with us now for a couple of years. The fantastic thing about them is that we're quite busy. I realised quite early in the piece was that the landscape has really changed since we started our business 20 years ago. I remember in our own business originally, we'd apply for like a small, back then it might have been called the Entrepreneurs Program, a small grant. It was quite easy to do in-house. I'm finding today that these grants, we may not even know about them. They can be quite competitive as well. They can be very time-consuming. We may not necessarily be able to articulate across to them ourselves. So we're probably very good at what we do. And so that's why we we're referred to a specialist. And the fantastic thing about them is that they can find the grants for us. They can help do the applications. They've got a strong success rate, great value for money. And I look at them now as a partner in our business because we are continually doing some level of, innovation in our business. So they access not just the state that we're in, but also other states and on a federal level as well. And also too, they've got people within their organisation that say, for example, are engineers. So they understand they're not just a business consultant with a general, sort of business background. And also the other thing that we've found that's been really important is I think sometimes people are a bit hesitant to look at grants. They're a little bit like, oh, I don't know whether to touch it. They're concerned also about maybe some of the high level ones can be a bit of ongoing reporting and things like that. Businesses don't want to get burdened down with that. So they actually manage all of that for us. And they're also registered tax agents too. So, So it from a CEO's perspective, it de-risks that.
Yes.
And it improves our success rate. So we've been with them now for a good couple of years and we've had 100% success rate with them, which has been fantastic. So it means we can get on with what we do.
Yeah.
And to me, they've just become another part of our team.
Yeah. So it's really knowing when to do it yourself and then also when to get an expert to help you with it.
Correct. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
good use of your own skills and your labour. So, so you mentioned with Carrum Downs the establishment of an advanced manufacturing process. So you've so let's into that a bit because you had a fantastic innovation. You had a willing customer who you could basically test it out on and frankly develop it with. And because it was new, different, you actually were going to have to build it yourself. So how'd you go about handling the manufacturing process, which again wasn't really your sweet spot? But what is the manufacturing process, I guess, as a starting point? What have you actually built as a manufacturer?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have through these grants and obviously the funding, the bank finance and things like that, that we've purchased particular assets such as we've set up a 3D printing room. We've got CNC mills, lathes. We've got a pressure tester so that we can make sure from a quality assurance perspective, we've got a water test tank and also like a training facility set up at Carrum Downs.
Wow.
So basically, we can do this ourselves because the technology is there. But in order to get to that point, that was part of our process was we actually also, through state growth, were able to tap into someone to help us. Okay, this is what we want to do. And they were able to help us put a bit of a plan in place, expose us, go in, look at other businesses, see how they are actually doing advanced manufacturing as well, and then slowly acquire what we needed to suit our purposes. So that's how that process worked.
Wow. So you've got quite an advanced production facility in that regard.
Correct. Yes.
And because of that, I guess that also provides a degree of flexibility, as in, tell me a bit more about the 3D printing capability.
Yeah. So it just means that we can actually, instead of outsourcing it, which only we might have to, outsource that to another supplier outside of Australia. It's just the cost to buy those parts can be so much more expensive. Whereas once we've designed it once ourselves, then the cost to reproduce that is so much more cheaper and cost effective as well.
Yeah. And that gives you enormous flexibility from a global perspective because, as I think you were saying the other day, if you need parts manufactured in Europe, you can send the files as opposed to send the parts.
Correct. And that's what we are currently doing now with
Yeah.
our Norwegian, correct, partnership. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it just means, and even our customers down here who are using our vehicles, if they need a particular part, for example, with the other subsea systems that they have that they've bought from overseas, if they need a particular part, their vehicle could be sitting non-operational for weeks until they wait for that part to get freighted over from overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an extraordinary improvement in the whole supply chain and the maintenance chain.
Correct. Yes.
If you really want to kick off your strategic planning and work in a supportive environment with other CEOs and leaders, the CEO Masterclass in Strategic Planning and Implementation is for you. This 10-month small group course helps you craft your strategic plan, present it to a group of peer investors, and develop a habit of monthly implementation. Our waitlist is open now at criticalfewactions.com.au. So we've now got this fantastic game-changing product that works in Tasmania, but if we've only got 1% of the global aquaculture market, how did that blossom into international sales and what did that involve to get export markets rolling? What did you learn?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm a big believer in tapping into the resources around us. And so we also connected with Trade Tasmania too, did a little bit of training online with them just to make sure that we had covered all our bases. So just making sure again that marketing was really important. So we needed to position ourselves not just as a little Tasmanian business, but that we could actually, we're a specialist, innovative organisation with a high value product in a very niche market. So therefore, we had to make sure I spent quite a bit of time rebranding the business, making sure all our touch points, our digital touch points, are very reflective of the organisation. The other thing that we did was we also went to have applied for awards as well in innovation. So the company was successful in being finalists last year for a couple of Australian awards. and then actually, winning one just recently in the Tasmanian ICT Advanced Manufacturing Awards. So
Fantastic.
getting that profile and that confirmation that, we're on the right path is really fantastic for the organisation. So
That's brilliant. I mean, hearing this story really is just truly inspiring, because you took what was a real challenge with you exited from some large subsea assets during COVID. You then looked around, okay, as to how you could extend your operations business. You took a punt, although at the time it would have seemed fairly obvious, on forming a new partnership on building something from scratch. You've gone through the process of being really diligent around your intellectual property protection, but also setting up the business, not just to have trademarks, but actually set it up in a way that the IP is protected, the operations are protected. You've now established an advanced manufacturing business on the mainland, which is always easy. And
we don't do anything by halves, as you probably gathered, John.
yeah, and you've now got yourself your first export sales in Europe, and there was no. I guess probably wasn't your fault that you also chose to actually be in the country with the lowest global US tariffs on the planet, apart from Penguin Island. So what you guys have achieved in 4 or 5 short years is really quite astonishing. So you mentioned that you were involved in the CEO masterclass during the early phases. How did you find that process?
I thought that was great for me because I was going through a bit of a transition. That was at the time, as I said, I guess everyone in that class could be at some different phase, whether their career as a CEO, whether they're a founder of a small business, or whether they're in a medium to larger organisation. So that phase that I was at, it gave me time to really stop and think and use that 12 months to go, wow, I think we've got a really great opportunity here with Southern Ocean Subsea. And I found for me also to just catching up every month, it just keeps you accountable. I think sometimes it's really easy to kind of make all these great goals and we kind of go off and then we get distracted. But throughout that period of time and just networking with other like-minded people, because a lot of the time as the CEO in the organisation, mind you, which was not a role I actually chose, I think I evolved into it by my nature. I've always been quite a conscientious person and always interested in learning. I just love to be around inspiring people. And, we'd always have different people that would come in and talk. I like to learn constantly from people, but I just found it was a really great time to reset for us and put some things in place so we could set up a really good foundation to take this business to where it is today. So
Fantastic. And so in reflection, what were the game changers that really changed your business for the better?
So I just think if I look at it more from the Southern Ocean Subsea perspective, before our other business, we really operated, our head office was in Victoria. So it could have its challenges. We had a management team there, but it was hard to be around. We weren't physically around. So I had to work in high risk, remote areas a lot of the time. The lovely thing about working here in Tasmania is I've really made more of an effort to network here, perhaps more so than I had done in the past. I think before the 15 years of starting our original company, we had young children as well. And I think as a mum, you're always tied between, two things all the time. And I'd love to put more effort into this or this, but just trying to keep that balancing act all the time. So I think I've really learnt the importance of networking and that you really, to really listen to your gut instinct as well. You really have to believe in yourself, find the right people and really build up that team around you. I think that's really important. You don't have to do everything.
No.
There are fantastic, people you can tap into. And also really, for me, one of my big passions, and for me and Andrew, I think what was a real driver for us is we really wanted to create an opportunity and have a business opportunity for our children to come into if they chose to.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we do create opportunities for young people today. So
Absolutely.
that's one of the things that really drives us as well. So we've got a really nice, I'd say, a nice mix of age gaps in our organisation, from the parents down to the millennials. So Yeah, which keeps it fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. So, Jennifer, what do you see for the future of South Sea Sub?
For SOSA,
Precisely. Mm,
yeah, we're really excited. We really see this potential to build up more, expanding overseas. We strategically have chosen to work to sell our product with suppliers rather than just selling it to one of the bigger equipment, I guess, companies that would then on-sell the product direct to the aquaculture farm owners, because we're really keen on making sure that when our product goes to market, that it's working to the best of its capacity. And if there's any continual improvements we can make, if we're working with the supplier that has a maintenance provider with them, then we're getting that constant feedback and we can continually work with them, because that operational uptime is really critical. We've seen over the years in the industry, a lot of the times they'll buy a piece of equipment, they'll try and do it in-house. Oh, it's not working, and then that gets thrown on the scrap heap. So for us, it was really important that we make sure we provide that support. And that's where I think I see us, long term, just becoming a really good, continually doing that innovation, fine-tuning our product. There'll be other ideas, I'm sure, that will branch off from that, no doubt.
mm.
Yeah, but we really see it also operating more remotely as well. So with the integration of AI, we really see that these vehicles won't just have to be, operated by a pilot on a boat around a fish farm. Eventually that can be operated in a control room. So there's lots of, really exciting things on the future, I think, with AI.
Fantastic. And Jennifer, you mentioned before you evolved into the role of CEO. It wasn't your first pick. If you were going back 8 years and talking to your younger self, just stepping up into this role, what advice would you give younger Jennifer?
Look, I probably would say trust your instincts and just grow with it. Like sometimes, where you think you'll be in so many years, you could be in a completely different direction. I probably look back at my original journey. Like I started literally, I remember being pregnant with my oldest son, Angus, in 2003. I left to do the books to support Andrew in his business journey. And I never would have believed I am where I am today. So I think sometimes, make the most of the opportunities that come past, continually learn. I've always been a real advocate for, you can't, you can do it the hard way or the easy way. And I'm always a big advocate, learn from other people's mistakes.
Mm.
You do make your mistakes, make them quick and get on with it. And so don't do that.
Oh, fast, fail cheap.
Yeah, yeah. And just to enjoy the journey, it's fantastic. I think we're very lucky in Australia to be able to, own and operate a business and that sort of thing. And it's just been, absolutely fantastic. And to see where we are today is really exciting. So,
Fantastic. Are you looking to pinpoint the areas that will make the biggest impact on your business? Check out the Organisation Performance and Value Diagnostic. This powerful tool lets you evaluate your business on multiple facets and provides email reminders to keep you on track. Head over to criticalfewactions.com.au and get started now. So, final question, Jennifer. If a CEO is looking to develop their business, based on your experiences, what critical few actions should they start doing tomorrow if they did nothing else?
The main thing I think is you really need to talk to your customers, because I think you've got to have that really deep relationship. Be very clear about your value proposition as well. I think you can sometimes, particularly if you're in that innovative space, you can get really caught up in your own. You think your product's absolutely fantastic. Haven't tested it with your customer.
Yeah.
You could be wasting a lot of time and money. I think it's very important as well to network and to build up those strategic relationships as well. I think that's really important. And to tap into, like I said years ago, I wouldn't have thought the opportunity would have come up to participate in the CEO Masterclass. And I was so grateful that I did. It's led me to other people, and it's just been, a fantastic journey. So
Fantastic. Jennifer, it's always been a delight to chat with you. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and your learnings. I really appreciate it.
thank you so much, John. I really appreciate that, and really enjoying listening to your podcast. They're very insightful, and again, we always learn something from someone. So I think that's really important.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Critical Few Actions podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and grab the downloadables from the show notes. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you share it with your peers and your team. Stay focused and take action. The Critical Few Actions podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only and is not individualised business advice, nor can it be relied upon as such. You must take responsibility for your own advice, decisions, and actions.